Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Naj. I'm a journalist, activist, and all the other things that belong to human rights and making this world a better place. It is my great honor today to welcome one of a very, very special person. His Honorable Mr. Tundu Lissu from Tanzania. And for those who don't know Mr. Tundu Lissu is an MP, a Member of Parliament from Tanzania, from the opposition party CHADEMA, but he's also a hero and a champion in fighting for human rights and democracy, especially now with the situation we have back in Tanzania under President Magufuli. He's also a lawyer, and he was a former president of Law Society, the Bar Association of Tanzania. So let's give him a warm welcome. Welcome to Berlin. What brought Tundu Lissu here is not really a good story, but is a story that we will have to tell over and over. Our generation, the generation to come, our children, their children, I think they will tell this story over and over because it's a story that in my generation from Tanzania, I have never heard anything like this before. September 7th, 2017, as he was leaving Dodoma, where the parliament is located in Tanzania, he was gunned down by men with machine guns. There was 38 bullets. They fired 38 bullets, and out of those, 16 hit his body. And since then, he has been undergoing 23 operations in Belgium. 24, sorry. Right after the incident, he spent some time in Nairobi for a couple of months, 4 months for medical purposes, but then a decision was made that later on he was flown to Belgium. He's been in Belgium for over a year now undergoing treatment. We think it is necessary to let the world know what is going on right now in Tanzania because, especially here in Germany, there's not much information, like people always are used to hear about Tanzania and the good stories and tourism and the animals park, but things are not like that anymore. And we find it necessary to tell this story over and over again until we are heard. So let's have this moment today to have this discussion. But Tundu Lissu is also known for his critique against the government, his critiques against the president. And I think this is what put his life in danger because some presidents in our continent, they don't like to be pointed a finger at, especially when they do wrong. People from Africa, I will not be ashamed to use the word, we have dictatorship in Tanzania, and I do agree. So, not to delay further, I would like to officially give the floor to Mr. Tundu Lissu. We would have later on a session of questions and answer and a discussion here with the professor and Mr. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. Mr. Mboro. So welcome and thank you very much for being here again.
Thank you so much for your very kind introduction, and thank you all for making time off your busy schedules to come and share with me some, some ideas and thoughts about the situation in Tanzania. Whenever I come to Germany, and this is not the first time, it's not even the second or third time, I think, if my memory serves me right, this is my 5th time. I always feel that coming to Germany, I'm coming to friends. I'm coming to a country that has been one of our steadiest friends as a nation from the earliest years of our independence. I don't know how many of us know that one of the very first countries with which the newly independent Tanganyika established diplomatic relations with in early 1962 was what was then called West Germany. Before Baba wa Taifa, before Mwalimu Nyerere became a socialist, before he went to Beijing, to Peking then, and came back a convert to socialism in 1965, Mwalimu was very close to the West. And West Germany and John F. Kennedy's White House were some of the places that were very close to Mwalimu. Now, from those earliest days, with the exception of a very small blip in 1964-65, which resulted from the Zanzibar Revolution and Zanzibar being recognized by the former GDR, and later on a dispute over whether West Germany and East Germany could have diplomatic missions in one country. There was a small tiff there between Tanzania and West Germany, which somewhat soured our relations. But with the exception of that small blip, our relations with German government and the German people, anything but, they have been very good, I should say, and they have been excellent. One of the most iconic, which appears in one of our banknotes, is Dar es Salaam. And I wonder how many of us know that with German assistance. And those tall buildings, all 2 and all 5. And all those tall residential buildings at the University of Dar es Salaam, plus the iconic Nkrumah Hall, were built with only a small aspect of the years of excellent relations between Tanzania and Germany. And that's why I say, whenever I come to this country, I, by our side, through highs and lows, through thick and thin, all this long period. And so I'm happy again to be able to come to Germany, to this country that has been a friend of ours for a long time. As friends, because of this long and steady relationship. Friends have obligations to one another. And the obligations of friends is to be brutally honest. Friends have an obligation to be, especially in times of trouble. Especially in difficult times. You can afford one another in good times. In bad times, you need to be absolutely honest and frank. And so, since at least September of 2016, when I came here for the third time, I have been coming here because the situation in Tanzania demands that we are absolutely frank and honest to people we consider our friends. I have been coming here to tell the German people, the German government, and the representatives of the German people nothing but the unvarnished truth of the situation as it has unfolded in Tanzania, especially with the advent of President Magufuli's administration after the general elections of 2015. If you allow me, I intend to be brutally frank and absolutely honest with you because I consider myself amongst friends. When I was here last in December of 2016, we came here on the 9th of December with my national leadership, with my national leaders, my national chairman, and the leader of the official opposition in Tanzanian Parliament, Honorable Freeman Mbowe, and the Secretary General of my party, Dr. Mashinji, among others. I was walking on my 2 feet. I was fine. When I came here in January of this year, I was on crutches, and today I've come again on crutches. By right, I shouldn't be here. By right, I should be long dead and buried. Because on that fateful day that Naj has told you about, I was hit really bad. I was hit really bad. The sound of gunfire, the sound of automatic rifle fire directed at you, being hit by bullets repeatedly, I can assure you is not 16 times. You look at me now, I look like I'm fine. I'm beginning to walk, but if I were to strip this fine suit that I'm wearing, my body is basically a patchwork of scars from bullets and doctor's knives. I was hit really bad. My legs were smashed. The right leg was just above the knee, the lower femur was completely smashed. There is about 10 centimeters of bone missing. The the right pelvis was also smashed. I was hit on the left leg. Doctors extracted 6 bullets from my stomach, 1 from my elbow, and they tell me 1 remains somewhere near the spinal cord in the lower back. On the right leg alone, I have been operated upon 11 times. It's full of metals. There is basically, if you see the X-ray pictures, you wonder how I pass through security checkpoints at airports. So by rights, I shouldn't be here. The fact that I'm alive at all is a miracle. And I think it is fair to say the age of miracles did not end with those, the miracles of the biblical times. The age of miracles is still very much alive with us. And if you will, I'm the living proof of this fact that the age of miracles is still very much with us. I survived. I survived. And I think that because I survived, then it's not just a cause for celebration, I guess. I think whatever time I have left, it should be put to good use. And the good use, in my view, is not only to tell my story, this story of a close share with death. I think putting the time I have to good use includes speaking out against the causes for which these things happen. I did not survive in order to be silent. I survived in order to tell the story of the land of horrors that Tanzania has become. And that's why I said I want to be absolutely frank and brutally honest with you, my friends. Tanzania has never been a beacon of democracy. It never was. The introduction of multi-party system in 1991-92 did not usher in a democracy. It created the beginnings of a path towards building a democratic society. If you look at the Tanzania's constitution today, the most striking thing about it is not the change from the days of one-party rule. It is, on the contrary, the striking continuity between the one-party rule in the multi-party era. In 1962, a year into independence, when we became a republic, we adopted a constitution which said, among other things, and it still says so today, that the president shall not only be forces, he shall also be the head of government and a part of parliament. So when you speak of Tanzanian parliament, constitutionally speaking, you are talking of the National Assembly of peoples like Tundu Lissu on the one hand, and on the other you're talking of the President of the United Republic, John Pombe Magufuli. So he is part of parliament. Now, you look for that in any democratic constitution anywhere in the world, and you will struggle to find anything like that. That came from our 1962 constitution, and in fact it was adopted from the absolutist monarchies of 18th and 19th century Europe, where the king, the absolute monarch, was not only the head of state, he was like Louis XVI, the state itself. So our constitution still retains those characteristics of feudal Europe. The president is a head of government, head of state, commander-in-chief, and also head of parliament. Part of parliament. That came from 1962 constitution. Now there is a small provision which not many people talk about, which says, in his exercise of powers as president, the president shall not be obliged to follow advice of any person. You look at our Article 33(6), I think, in today's constitution, that provision has been retained as it was in 1962. So whatever President Magufuli does, don't waste your time criticizing his advisors. The Constitution declares that he is not bound to follow anybody's advice. So if he follows the advice of his ministers, he's only doing them a favor. Now you tell me how democratic that constitution is. But never mind. Let me go back to my story. So we weren't exactly a democracy when we adopted multi-party system in 1992. But there is no mistaking the fact that from 1992 up to 2015, the trajectory in the quest for democracy, the trajectory was one of improvement. If you were to draw a graph, now people are talking about the shrinking democratic space. The period from 1992 to 2015 was a period of the expanding democratic space. With fits and starts, absolutely. With difficulties, yes. But there is no mistaking the fact that there was a general improvement. Yes, there were serious issues with the way our presidents, with the way our governments exercised power. It is true. It is true that our presidents, especially Mkapa and Kikwete, their administrations were characterized more by stinking corruption. There is absolutely no doubt about it. I've said it in public and I will say it anyway. The Kikwete administration was like a mafia operation. It was favoring left, right, and center. However, it is important to underline the fact that even with that kind of corrupt government, the democratic rights, there was a general improvement in government accountability. Parliament repeatedly caused ministers to resign. The only time in our entire history when a prime minister was forced to resign and the cabinet disbanded was in 2007, 2008, when, because of the Richmond scandal, Parliament forced Edward Lowassa to resign as prime minister. It was possible because the democratic space was expanding. And Kikwete was not, Lowassa was of export. Repeatedly, ministers were forced out because Parliament asserted itself. Even that Parliament that was heavily dominated by CCM. And if I have to speak specifically about the 10 years of President Kikwete, President Kikwete didn't have to change the constitution. Actually, there were no constitutional amendments during the 10 years of the Kikwete administration. What he did was to let Bunge free, was to let Bunge, our parliament, be parliament. And all he did was to let parliament be covered live on television. Those 10 years, when we had Bunge live, were the best years in our parliamentary history ever. Parliament became very strong. Now, being sworn in as president was to shut down Bunge live. He did not start by prohibiting political activity. The first things he did was to shut off Bunge. Thereafter, the rest followed. So, again, I want to make this point clear. There was general improvement during the first generation, during the first nearly 25 years of multi-party system. With the general election of 2015, and 3 years after those elections, the country has been thrown into darkness. The country has descended into perhaps one of its darkest chapters. And I'll speak about it shortly, but let me just highlight what was done immediately after President Magufuli was sworn in. I say Bunge Live, shutting down Bunge was the first thing, because Bunge had become too dangerous. Bunge had become too effective. Bunge had become one of the institutions that people knew if something went wrong within the government, Bunge would set it right. So the first action was deal with Bunge. Not deal with the opposition members. That came shortly afterwards. Deal with Bunge as an institution. So the television cameras were removed from Bunge. And then, on February 6, 2016, 3 months into his administration, on the 39th anniversary of CCM, this 39th anniversary of CCM, President Magufuli made a speech in Singida, my hometown, which was televised live on television. And the president said that he would see to it that by year 2020, there is no political opposition in Tanzania. It was an open declaration of war. He didn't make it in some, committee meeting somewhere in the darkness. It was made on national television. That by year 2020, I would see to it that there is no political opposition. And that was immediately followed by a ban on political activity for all political parties except CCM until the year 2020, until when we go to the polls again a year or so from now. So since that time, we have not been allowed to carry out political meetings or rallies, which are provided for by our laws. The president does not have any legal power whatsoever to ban political activity. But he just did. He did. And if you're foolish enough to say, Mr. President, you cannot do this, you will have to deal with the intelligence and security apparatus and the riot police, the FFU. The ban on political activity, completely illegal as it is, has been enforced very effectively and very brutally through the use of force of arms, through violence of our security forces. If you go out in the streets, try to organize a meeting, you will face the music. The last week, a police regional commander in some place in Tanzania said, if ACT had just said we're going to organize demonstrations, and the regional police commander said, we'll beat you up to pulp. Now, our law does not prohibit demonstrations. There is no law in Tanzania that prohibits people from expressing their displeasure with anything. Our laws allow demonstrations, but we have senior police officers who threaten people openly that if they dare demonstrate, they will be beaten up to pulp. We have had people killed in demonstrations. You probably remember the killing of that university student, Aquilin, a year or so ago, who was shot dead. And shot dead by the police. Then they said, well, we don't know who shot her, but they were the only people who had guns and they were firing. But never mind. So, the ban on political activity. You cannot meet, even internally. Internal meetings are not regulated by law. In Tanzania today, we cannot meet like we are here now. Because the moment you start, you will have riot police with tear gas and guns and the Robocop thing. They come with what Bob Marley called their uniforms of brutality. You can't hold meetings, internal meetings which are not regulated by law. You cannot hold political rallies outside. We have a situation where the entire leadership, national leadership, of the largest opposition party in Tanzania today, my party, is facing possible imprisonment. And if you follow us come out of prison after spending 105 days in prison for not appearing in court. He was visiting with me, by the way. Last year, and he came to Belgium, and we did not even talk much. He said, "Man, I'm rushing to Tanzania because tomorrow it's my court appearance," and he couldn't get the connection to Dar es Salaam. He missed the day in court. He went to court the next day, sent to Segerea, and spent 105 days. So Tanzania has become that kind of country. The national leadership of CHADEMA is facing possible imprisonment in what are clearly politically motivated criminal charges. Our members of parliament have taken turns, in police jails across the country. I'm by far the star performer in that regard. In the 1 year before September 7th, the 1 year before I was shot, I was arrested on 8 different occasions and charged in court 6 times. So when I go back home later this year, I'm going to resume my legal defense in those 6 cases. They will probably get me in 1 or 2 or perhaps all of those cases, but never mind. Arrested 8 times. 2 of those 8 times for making statements inside the debating chamber of parliament. Kicked out by the speaker. Go out of parliament and you find these faceless security types waiting for you. And you know what? Again, President Magufuli, I love Magufuli. Magufuli, he never minces his words. He loves television. He said on television, he told the speaker, deal with those troublemakers inside parliament, and I will deal with them outside parliament. So if you speak out, like Halima and Godilema did last week, only saying that we support what the Comptroller and Auditor General has said with regard to our parliament. They've been sent out, Halima for 6 months, Lema for 1 whole year. I was arrested on 2 occasions for making statements which, by our constitution, are absolutely protected. No member should be arrested or charged in court for anything done or any statement made on the House floor. That has not protected us. That did not protect me. That has not protected any of our members of parliament. CCM members can say whatever they wish. They can do whatever they want to do. It's never a problem. So we get kicked out of the House, and when we go out, President Magufuli and his goons are waiting for us. It's been one long dark night for political parties, especially for CHADEMA. Our people have been killed, murdered in cold blood. Our regional chairman for Geita is where President Magufuli comes from. Alphonse Mawazo was abducted by CCM members, hacked with machetes in broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and thrown on the roadside, and they took pictures of him bleeding to death, and they posted them on social media. No arrest, no investigation, no prosecution, nothing. The personal assistant of my national chairman, who was foolish enough question President Magufuli's doctorate, Ben Saanane, was picked one fine evening, coming out of our party office. He has not been seen since. He was snatched on November 16th, 2016. He hasn't been seen since. Our member of District Council for Kilombero, Godfrey Luena, was attacked in his home by CCM members, hacked to death with pangas. No arrest, no prosecution, no investigation. I was hit 16 times. You know, they don't like me that much, but they gave me a bunge house, a bunge flat. And my bunge flat is in the government housing compound in Dodoma, where ministers and what the great and the good live. It is heavily guarded 24/7. Each individual apartment block has its own security, has CCTV. And yet, this, what was Julikana so-called, these gunmen followed me from Bunge, from Parliament, into this heavily guarded government housing compound. No security whatsoever that day. None. And I was hit 16 times. No investigation. Not even an interview. None of my neighbors. And I live in the same block with the Minister of Energy, an MP for Chaco, Magufuli's former constituency, Dr. Kalemani. And his wife was in the house. My housemate, my neighbor who rushed me to hospital, the housemaid of the deputy speaker, not one of them has been interviewed by the police. I have not been interviewed. No investigation, no report of any investigation, no arrest, no suspect. And a year and a half later, to pay my medical bills. By our law, if you fall sick as a member of parliament and you are brought for medical treatment, our regulations require that we get paid $400 per day as subsistence allowance. $400 is a good sum. It's a tidy sum, all right? So you're entitled to $400 a day, and whoever is taking care of you is entitled to 20% from your medical bills, which by law must be footed by Parliament. So a year and a half later, I'm struggling. I've become somebody called me if it's a national passion. I have been compelled to ask for to appeal to our people's generosity to keep me from basically dying. And the speaker is on record in Parliament saying we cannot pay Mr. Lissu's bills because actually President Magufuli has not authorized the release of the funds for that purpose. So that is what it has become. You can be killed, or if your guardian angels are wide awake, if you survive, you should not expect any helping hand even if it is authorized by law from our great and the good. Anyway, it is not just the political opposition which has suffered. The press, newspapers have been shut down left, right, and center. Journalists, in one of those 86 cases that I'm facing back home, I think one or two charged with journalists, because these journalists and their publishers had the temerity to interview me, and I was foolish enough to accept being interviewed, and they published the stories, and we're in court. Freedoms are gone. Being a journalist has become a very dangerous occupation in Tanzania. We have a case of Azori Gwanda, who used to report for Mwananchi, one of the leading Swahili dailies. And Azori Gwanda had been investigating the killings of over 400 villagers in the Rufiji Kibiti area. And that's another story of Tanzania Magufuli, by the way. And so Azori Gwanda was following up on these stories of people being taken from their homes, from their farms, from their shops, from their prayer houses, mosques and what, and disappearing. Taken by the members of security forces, by our paramilitary police, FFU. And then bodies found floating in River Rufiji, or washed up on Indian Ocean beaches. So Azori Gwanda started following up on these stories. And one fine morning, they went after him. And they took him. And they identified themselves as police officers to his wife, his pregnant wife. And last week, he had finished 500 days still missing. You all know the story of Mohammed Dewji. So it's not just the press, it's not just the political opposition. Our business community has become a particular target of Tanzania Magufuli. Who abducted Mohammed Dewji? No investigation, no arrest, nothing. And after he was released following a huge uproar, he was released a few hundred meters from State House, right? You know, aliachiliwa Gymkhana grounds. Yeah? And this gentleman who was missing for 10 days, he hasn't said a word since his release. And then, around the time he was still missing, President Magufuli and his ministers made a declaration. They said, we are going to confiscate 12,000 hectares of farms, of sisal farms, belonging to Mohammed Enterprises. This guy has been abducted. People, knowing what has become of those who disappear under Tanzania Magufuli, we are fearing for the worst. And here is a government declaring that we are going to forcibly acquire his farms. And they took the farms. And I have been told, and this it has been confirmed through a number of sources, hundreds of business people have been arrested quietly by intelligence and security people, sent to prison, charged with serious economic crimes, and then, if they are able to pay their way out, They are released and the charges are dropped. Rostam Aziz's brother. Rostam Aziz is one of our richest businessmen in the country. He had been living in Dubai after 2015. His brother, who runs a safari company, was arrested, charged with 92 counts of economic crimes, which are not bailable, money laundering. He had received $9,000 from some American tourists who wanted to come hunting. And Rostam, this Aziz fellow was charged with 92 counts of economic crimes, including money laundering. His brother, Rostam Aziz, appeared in Dar es Salaam. We saw TV footage of him visiting with the president. And then the next day he made he spoke very well of President Magufuli and how nice he was. The following week, the brother was released. Charges were dropped. And suddenly, you all know Channel 10, right? Channel 10 is one of the major television networks in Tanzania. It belongs to Rostam Aziz. And suddenly, President Magufuli made an announcement that, you know what? Actually, Channel 10 is CCM property. All right? It is CCM. It's CCM property. So what is that? If not extortion, if not a shakedown operation. Only last week, the managing director and executives of Vodacom Tanzania, Vodacom is the largest mobile operator in the country, arrested, charged with very serious allegations of economic crimes, tax evasion, and such duties. And only yesterday, they were released. And the government says, they agreed to pay 5 billion shillings. All right? So President Magufuli's government has become a major extortionist racket. If you have money, you are in danger in Tanzania. If you have money, you are in danger. You are in danger of being arrested, charged with economic crimes, which will never be investigated. And if you are foolish enough not to pay your way out, you will continue rotting in prison like Mzee Rugemalila and Harbinder Singh, those who were arrested and charged with money laundering and such like, following the multi-billion shilling theft of the escrow account, which we exposed in Parliament. So you have a situation where private business people are in prison because they received money stolen from the central bank, 326 billion, and who signed those checks? Who would have authorized those payments? There was a report by the president's personal assistant, who is a member of parliament now for some constituency in Morogoro, had written to the governor of the central bank that the president has directed that those billions be released. And we know they were divided up amongst cabinet ministers and members of parliament. Chenge got 1.6 billion, Professor Tibaijuka another 1.6 billion. People divided up the loot. And the people who are in prison are James Rugemalila and Harbinder Singh, the private business people. That is Tanzania, Magufuli. And the story goes on and on and on. Now, when you say these things, when you speak out against these crimes, they tell you, shh, the president bought, aircraft. We now have a Dreamliner. We have several bombardiers and one Airbus 320, I think. The president is building a standard gauge railway. So don't shout. Don't. Shh. The president is building, interchange near Tazara. The president is building flyovers. We are supposed to either keep quiet, to keep silent on these crimes because our president has bought aircraft for Air Tanzania. We are supposed to keep quiet when our people are murdered because the president's rebuilding flyovers. Because our president is building a standard gauge railway. Or he's going to build the Stigler's Gorge hydropower project if he gets the money, that is. No one asks, what is the cost of this standard gauge railway and where the money comes from? No one asks which law makes the president the chief government procurement officer who can purchase aircraft. Don't we have laws for these things? No one asks. Mwalimu Nyerere was the president for 23 years. He never built an airport in Butiama, his home village. Mwinyi was the president for 10 years. So was Mkapa and Kikwete. They never built airports in their home villages. Our beloved president is building a 5-kilometer runway airport at Chato. I guess maybe it is a good thing. God did not say Chato villagers should not have an airport in their village. But is that investment, if you want to call it that way, authorized by our Bunge? Is that the appropriate use of scarce resources in a country with so many more serious problems? Our president insults women with such freedom, it is shocking. It's only lesser women who cannot bear children, many children. Men should marry as much as they want because we need more. Those school children and girls who are foolish enough to get pregnant while in school cannot get any education because our president says he cannot teach mothers. Somehow, it has become something to be ashamed of, to be a mother. So don't think it is fair. Let me wind up. By all accounts, if anyone has eyes to see, Tanzania is becoming another Zimbabwe in slow motion. Investors, local and foreign, are running away. I was in Brussels this Monday and Tuesday, and I was shown a study by the IMF conducted late last year, which shows that in the past 3 years of Tanzania Magufuli, foreign direct investment has fallen by half, by 50%. And are spiriting their money to Kenya. So 50% drop in foreign direct investment in 3 years. Magufuli, the president, said, our economy is growing by 7%. The IMF says it's actually growing between 2 and 4%, and 3.5% per annum. Actually, the economy is not growing. And because of that, those conclusions, the government of Tanzania has refused permission for that report to be published. So the economy is going south. You hear the president making statements that, we have enough money to last us 6 months without doing anything, without charging anybody any tax. The truth of the matter is, we are running on the economic testosterone. We are running on money raised through letters of credit by commercial banks, HSBC, Citibank, and Standard Chartered. They are selling government bonds abroad to raise money to keep us afloat. There is no money. That Standard Gauge Railway, I'm speaking here today, I don't think it will be finished. There is no money. The Standard Gauge, these Stigler's Gorge hydropower project, they have started clearing the forests around the area, the construction area. They're selling timber to business people, and they're sending the timber to China and other places. There is a study just released which shows that the actual cost of the Stigler's Gorge hydropower project is between $8 to $10 billion. The president has been saying it will cost about $5.6 billion. Who is the financier? Egyptian Exim Bank, Export-Import Bank of Egypt. Now, let's be honest to ourselves. I don't think there is any Egyptian bank which can raise $5.6 billion for a project in Tanzania. It will not happen. And who is the contractor? I used to know, because I follow football, I used to know that Arab Contractors was one of the major football teams in Egypt. I didn't know they're actually the civil contractors. Now they are supposed to be the builders of the Stigler's Gorge hydropower project. I don't believe it will happen. What will happen is there will be enough money to destroy the Selous ecosystem. The dam will not be built. Everything will be destroyed, and there will be no money left to build to complete the dam. And by then, inshallah, Magufuli will probably be out of office. So the economy is not performing, and now this is a very dark story, right? Every dark cloud has a silver lining, as they say. And I think all is not lost. Of all this violence, all is not lost. President Magufuli is a past master. He is a genius in the art of making enemies. So he's met enemies with the business community, both local and foreign. He's met enemies with civil servants, no salary increases in 3 years. He's met enemies with us political parties. He's made enemies with the churches. For those of you who follow politics of the homeland, when was the last time you had Tanzanian Catholic bishops writing a pastoral letter denouncing the sitting president and his government for mismanaging the affairs of the country? Our Catholic bishops did that last year to President Magufuli, a fellow Roman Catholic. When was the last time did you hear our Lutheran bishops say that the way the country is heading is going to be a disaster? Our Lutheran bishops did that last year. And the evangelicals, he's antagonized the churches. There are hundreds of Muslim clerics languishing in prisons all over the country almost, charged with serious crimes of terrorism, which are not investigated. Not at all. And therefore they are not concluded. So the religious community is not on his side. The peasants, you know what is happening with Korosho in Lindi and Mtwara. Disaster. So he's made enemies everywhere. The only institutions that he relies on extensively is nowadays the army. So if he needs to shut down foreign exchange shops, he does not send central bank officials, he sends the members of Tanzanian People's Defense Forces to close down, forex shops. When he needs to collect the korosho from the peasants in Mtwara and Lindi, he does not send crop marketing officers, he sends in the army, soldiers trained to kill. So the only quantity that we don't know, the only base of support that we are not sure about yet is the army and the security and intelligence apparatus. Everywhere else, the president has antagonized the nation. A person who can antagonize the nation that way cannot survive. A president who relies on the force of soldiers and security apparatchiks will end the way of General Omar al-Bashir. Or Robert Mugabe, if they are polite. All right? But of course, I will be the last one to say that is a better solution. Soldiers. Africa has experimented with soldiers in power with disastrous consequences. That is not the road to go. The road to go is through the ballot box. It is very difficult. The conditions become nearly impossible. They are not impossible yet. I believe if we mobilize ourselves properly, if we mobilize the nation properly, we can get rid of President Magufuli through the ballot box, in spite of everything that has happened. So I have not lost hope. I have not lost hope that out of this darkness, light will come. It always does. It always does. As they say, it is always the darkest before dawn. So, those of you who are interested in the situation in Tanzania, who are concerned about these things, should do something about it. I have spent the past few weeks visiting these countries, visiting our friends, Germany, the EU, I was in the US. And my message is to our friends worldwide, they should stand on the right side of the ethical equation. They should stand on the right side of history. A government that terrorizes its population, that destroys its political opposition, that commits the kind of human rights abuses that we have seen, that government departs from the accepted norms of international behavior, and it does not deserve to be given a single penny. And that has been my message everywhere. President Magufuli does not deserve to be given a single penny, because his government has departed from our obligations to the world. We have obligations to the world. When we signed those international treaties committing us to respecting democracy and human rights, we made obligations to the world. Now that we are shredding our constitution, we are disrespecting rights, we are breaching our obligations to the world has no business extending its hand to us.
If I may interfere, recently, by the way, CDU is a very good friend of your party, CHADEMA.
Yes.
And recently, there's been reported that Angela Merkel had a conversation through a telephone with President Magufuli, and she promised to build a factory, I think a fertilizer factory or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And were there any issues discussed about democracy or human rights in Tanzania? This is a party that is very close to your own. How come here you are sitting saying that they should not help this government, and here is Angela Merkel, who is the chairman and the Councillor of Germany from the party that is very close to CHADEMA, promising Tanzania things such as factories and...
Did anybody listen in to that phone call?
No.
Huh?
But the question is, how sure are you that this phone call happened or didn't happen?
Well,
you should know better.
That's what
If you want to share that with us.
I know from what I read of the press statement from the State House in Dar es Salaam, that Chancellor Angela Merkel was is very happy with the way President Magufuli is running the country, and she's extended an invitation for President Magufuli to visit Germany, and all those good things, right?
She's our expert on this.
Now, that is what we heard from the State House in Dar es Salaam. Have the Germans said anything? No. And I'm not going to break diplomatic confidences here. So I'm not going to tell you what I was told in confidence. It is the only thing I can say is the government of the Federal Republic of Germany is very unhappy with the ways of Tanzania and Magufuli. And I've spoken to a lot of people, members of parliament, ministry officials at foreign affairs, international cooperation and development. And I was expecting to find confirmation of this good news coming from Dar es Salaam. I did not get any. I will not go beyond that. So my friends, as I said, I can go on and on and on, and it is not fair to all of them. So allow me to end here for now. I'll be happy to answer any questions from you if you have any. And I see what looks like a nice German beer on some tables. I wouldn't mind having some. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking time and